welcome back to our Dragon Quest Zelda extravaganza right here on Downloadable Content. We're all still here, including Ron.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Still corporeal, all of us. We now move into our second part of this episode, in which we talk about The Legend of Zelda.
I got a thing.
Also turns 25 years old today. The Legend of Zelda was actually released in Japan 3 months before the first Dragon Warrior game came out, so they were pretty close in their release dates. It was originally released for the Famicom in Japan, then made its way over to the NES. It made it over to the US in 1987. And one of the very first things I noticed when I was a kid was that the cartridge was gold-colored.
Why was that, by the way?
I love gold!
Was that ever explained?
Marketing.
Marketing
Was
mostly.
marketing?
Marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all marketing.
Well, back in the day, NES, if an NES cartridge was put out in a specific color other than gray, that meant something special.
That meant shit was gonna happen.
Yeah.
So kind of like how Gauntlet was in a black cartridge. Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
So there we go. One of the very first things, I mean, we have very little background of Zelda in the first game. It's just you start the game and boom, you're in Hyrule Field. Go.
Yeah,
And you're not
really...
Zelda, you're Link.
Well,
Yeah.
they explain that in the instruction booklet. It's like, oh yeah, Zelda got kidnapped. You, as Link, should go save her.
Yeah,
but
but it's
who reads the instruction booklets?
And then they leave you in front of in front of a cave and just say, go.
Well, back then, NES, back then instruction booklets were actually read because they did contain important information.
Like how to play.
Like
story.
nowadays, there's really no need for an instruction manual because everything you ever wanted to know about the game is included in the first 20 hours of tutorial. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, Final Fantasy 13.
but,
Alright.
Miyamoto had this idea, as he always does.
You mean God?
We are not worthy.
We're not worthy!
And if we all remember, the first Legend of Zelda game was, again, fucking difficult.
Yeah.
It wasn't
But-
that bad.
It was manageable.
It
was still hard.
to a 5-year-old,
It was.
it was the hardest thing on the planet. But
Okay, so I got through 6 dungeons as a 5-year-old? Whoopsie.
so
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better.
And also, what we noticed immediately was that the first Legend of Zelda game was extremely non-linear. Extremely. It did not follow a set... You did not have to go through a set path. You could explore different dungeons, at different paces.
The key to this first Legend of Zelda game was just exploration, to just go and do whatever.
And that was Miyamoto's intent.
And it was a great concept.
It was a very good concept, if only slightly frustrating by the fact that you had no direction at all.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, you're in the middle of Hyrule Field and go on your way.
Yeah.
Go, my little birdies, have fun.
Yeah, I mean, you drew your own maps, you drew your own locations, you had to find all the secret passages, you had to find where to buy the best shield, where...
Oh, no, you did have a map. It was just a big gray rectangle in the top corner of the screen.
You see, and this is why I said draw your own map, because that triangle did shit. Wait, did I say triangle? I bet rectangle. Whatever.
It
still was useless.
You could also go through the entire game without ever needing to have the sword, if you were feeling manly enough.
I've seen a walkthrough of the second quest, swordless. I'm like, you are nuts.
So, the thing about The Legend of Zelda, because of just how non-linear, this was one of the first types of games in which there was no set path. You had very little direction, and, it was entirely exploration-based. So people had to keep notes and Gamers would talk to each other and trade strategies on how to tackle this castle or that dungeon, or
And
or where the
it was-
fuck do you, or whether you find the hidden, store by using the bomb in the mountain, which
Which one?
exactly.
All of
yeah,
them.
there's one near the beach. There's one in Spectacle Rock. Though don't go to that one yet. That's level 9, isn't it?
And it was Nintendo had caught on to the fact that gamers were trading these strategies and tips. So Nintendo,
We can make money off this.
well, hold on. Oh, I'm getting there. Nintendo wanted to collect some of these, so they created their own, fun club sort of thing to gather all these tips and tricks because Zelda was a popular game, both in Japan and here. And the result of the collection of all these strategies resulted in the creation of Nintendo Power Magazine.
So we have The Legend of Zelda to thank for Nintendo Power.
Exactly.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it was a
One for you, Zelda. One for you.
There we go. The Legend of Zelda
Cheers.
was the directly resulted in the creation of Nintendo Power Magazine. It was also the first NES title to sell over 1 million units. The first
Zelda was also the first cartridge that had the battery pack for save games.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Yes, it
And
was.
what a great thing, because God forbid if we ever had to use passwords.
Well,
Oh, we never finished the game.
but yes, it was the very first game to have a save function, which was needed, considering how open-ended the game is.
Yeah.
And
And our first moments through Zelda, to walk into that old cave and to see the creepy old man that gives you the wooden sword.
Out there alone. Take this.
It's dangerous to go alone. Trust me, I made sure.
Dodongo dislikes bombs.
I thought it was just like smoke.
Or whatever. Bombs
I
make
think
smoke.
it's smoke, but
It's
it
smoke.
still works.
It still works.
Whatever.
But it was just the amount of contact between gamers was just amazing.
Well, because we didn't know where to go or what to do.
Yet for some reason that was one of its selling points.
It was challenging, but in a good way.
It was very good. I mean, I still haven't beaten the original Legend of Zelda, so
Shame on you.
that's okay.
Aw, Brian.
I know.
I've beaten both the first and second quest without losing a life.
Well, fuck off.
Ah,
Aren't
know,
you
you can
special?
play the entire
Yes.
first game without going to a dungeon until, like, you're super powered up, right?
Maybe.
But there we go. And then, I just remember playing through Legend of Zelda and thinking and figuring out who the hell is this Zelda person anyway.
Yeah, right.
Shouldn't this be called The Legend of Link?
Well, to be fair, in Zelda 2, they called it The Adventures of Link.
Oh, yes, Link
Yeah.
gets a subtitle, so we'll move right on into Zelda 2.
In which the Nintendo decided to do something fancy with an RPG mechanic.
Yes,
It didn't really work for it.
Well,
No, but I give credit to Nintendo for trying.
I mean, yeah, they tried something new. I can't deny them that. But it just didn't feel like a regular Zelda game.
it was released in the USA in 1988, and yes, as you just mentioned it, this game did combine RPG and platformer elements.
Link could jump.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the only game he could.
And the game was harder than the first one. To this
Yes, it
day, I've yet to beat it.
Which is funny because in Zelda 2 it wasn't quite so open-ended. It's just interesting to note that it wasn't quite as open-ended, yet
well, part of it too is because you're supposed to be going through the dungeons and you're getting powered up through the dungeons so that way you can get the items you need to get to the new dungeon.
Yeah, and that was the big key, was getting the items to move to the next area. Like the boulder in your way, you need the magic hammer.
Yeah.
And so there was a bit of linearity to it, but it was welcomed. It was the first time we ever saw anything like that. Well, being the second game, it finally showed some, path forward. Like, okay, here's where you should go next.
And fighting those bosses too was insanely hard in a platformer.
Ow.
Ow! Like you had like a health bar, for lack of a better word. But like you get hit twice by the boss, you die.
But they also
that's
had
the final dungeon. There, you can actually get to the final dungeon and run out of keys before you reach the final boss. You have to know where you're going to use that to get to the final boss. To be Gannon again.
Well, if you ran out of keys, you could just use the fairy spell.
No, they kind of fixed that glitch a bit.
You could pass through locks as a fairy. At least in the GameCube disc, you can.
Definitely not in the NES version.
Huh? Interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
I could always pass through key locks fine. Then again,
Because you're special.
We've established that already.
I am so special.
There you go.
I'm a precious little snowflake.
My gentle snowflakes. We'll move on to A Link to the Past.
Oh, my
Best game in the
favorite
series.
game of all time.
All right, before we start gushing fan squee over this game, some information on it. It was the first one for the Super Nintendo, released in Japan in '91, here in '92. It introduced a lot of things that would become the series mainstays. It introduced the Master Sword.
It introduced the full Triforce, the three triangles coming together.
It introduced that plot point. It introduced a hook shot.
It introduced the fire and ice rods.
Yep. We had multiple level dungeons.
Yeah.
The idea of sages.
And very critically acclaimed. It is actually one of the best-selling Super Nintendo games, almost 5 million units.
And you actually had two different worlds to explore.
Yes,
You had parallel
worlds,
universes to
which
explore.
would become a plot device in later games.
And a lot of
Yeah.
what was taken from Link to the Past was actually taken and used in Ocarina of Time, which shows that really Twilight Princess was not Twilight Princess. Wow, Link to the Past was just the groundbreaking move of the Zelda series.
Okay,
I have
you,
to agree with you. Without a
you
link
can
to the
fan
past,
squee now.
without a link to the past, you would not have the Zelda games that we have today.
Absolutely, and that's
We're-
why it
we're not-
stands as my greatest game ever, because of just how much you can do in the game. It never gets old.
Nope.
It also introduced the all the awesome side quests that Zeldas are now known for to get special items.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it was Link to the Past where you had to save the dude to get the golden Master Sword after he hammered it out, and it was like,
That was the level 3. The level 4 was throwing it into that pond with the fat fairy in the dark world.
right. That was but that's kind of where this.
But it
whole,
wasn't needed.
No, exactly.
you could beat Ganon with just a regular Master Sword, but to get the upgrades was totally optional.
Right. It was kind of. They kind of carried that over into Ocarina with the Big Orange Sword quest.
Yeah, you really didn't need the big Oron sword in Ocarina of Time. You could complete the game without it. It made it easier.
But
you could
it was
complete the game
welcomed.
without it.
Exactly, it was welcomed.
Yeah.
I was just impressed at how it looked visually.
My
God.
For back then in Super Nintendo days,
That was
state of
really
the art.
good. Yeah,
State of the art.
Nintendo.
Thanks, Capcom.
Yes, that was Capcom.
Yes, it
Really,
was.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Elaborate on that.
Please.
It was Capcom helped. Basically, Nintendo was like, "Hey, we're gonna make a new Zelda for the Super Nintendo. Capcom, want to help us out?" And Capcom was like, "Yeah, sure, totally." And they helped. Yeah, they helped develop that one. I want to say.
So that would explain why Capcom had a hand in the Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, and the Minish Cap.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they also did Link's Awakening too.
No,
I'm pretty sure
actually,
they didn't.
no, actually, that was all Nintendo.
Okay, my mistake.
But
It's the same style as with
precisely,
a Link's Awakening, as A Link to the Past and Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons.
precisely.
Interesting. I mean, the Super Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo wasn't afraid to loan out its characters to other companies. I mean, you
Philips, anyone?
I mean, you see Capcom had a hand in Link to the Past. Square did Mario RPG. So
Super Mario Art. Okay, I'll stop.
all right. Before you start boogieing.
Sorry, I like that Rust Forest in YouTube.
There you go. So, again, Link to the Past was definitely a groundbreaking entry in the series.
What else did they introduce? The Cane of Samaria? The Cane of Berna? The Magic Cape? The Ocarina?
Introduced the Ocarina, yes.
Actually, the most important one of them all, the introduction of bottles.
That would become a series mainstay because, yes,
The most useful item in Zelda history.
the bottle. The glass bottle. You could store potions and fairies and
milk. Don't forget milk.
And fish.
The Magic Bee. Remember that in Link to the Past?
Yeah.
It had spells and Link to the Past as well.
I just remember this game.
The Bombo spell. Best one ever.
I remember. I mean, A Link to the Past was I enjoyed it immensely. It was.
There was just so much to do. There was just enough side quests that didn't bog it down like Wind Waker did.
Also, if you remember a plot point, Gannon was not the sole bad guy or the sole.
No, he wasn't.
Well, it was Aghanim, which was Ganon's alter ego, as they explained in the pyramid.
Yes,
it was his light world puppet essentially for him
Basically.
to screw around with the sages, so that way he could get out of the dark world.
So
It was just great all around. It introduced somewhat of a plot. It introduced a ton of items, an entire laundry list of things that, okay, maybe Link to the Past was the only game that introduced it, but still it was welcomed.
Well, as I said, a lot of the things in Link to the Past would make its way to the next main release.
Ocarina of Time.
We would get to the N64, in which we would see the game, the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The Ocarina of Time was released on the N64 in 1998. It was the first in the series to incorporate 3D environment.
The most annoying support character ever.
Oh my god.
Hey, listen!
I will reach through this headset and choke you all.
Yeah, one of the other main things with Ocarina of Times is the universal success it had. Like, it was the very first game, Famitsu, the main Japanese magazine for video games. It was the very first game that they had to have a perfect score.
Yes.
Yes.
It was.
Yes, it was.
It was released to universal acclaim. It was a major commercial success. This was the first Zelda game that I had completed from beginning to end.
No, this was the first Zelda game I ever played.
This was
This will always have
Zelda.
a special place in my heart.
This was a great Zelda that just really introduced a lot of the mainstays that Zelda has today. The introduction that Ganon was a member of the Gerudo tribe, a tribe out in the middle of fuck nowhere.
That was all female.
That was all female.
They were all female, except for Ganon. He was just a freak of nature.
He wasn't a pig.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Well, not until the end of the game, but...
Well, I wouldn't even call that a pig. It was
a
a giant behemoth thing.
And how
He still had a snout.
It was a once in a 100-year occurrence, and how he would be the leader, and he had just had this, how he had this lust for power, and it showed that how the Triforce can be separated. It showed, how the Master Sword should be used. It really just showed what the Zelda timeline was all about.
It definitely. One thing I will give Ocarina of Time is that it did rely heavy on backstory. You got a lot of backstory.
There was a lot of backstory on characters.
And
on
it introduced
characters.
the goddesses. Din, Ferrore, Nehru. It was just so amazing in that aspect. just introducing so many concepts at once. The Deku Tree, the Zoras, the
goddesses, though, were actually introduced in the original Zelda manual.
Really? Did not know.
Ocarina of Time was my introduction, really, to the Zelda series. Up until that point, I mean, I had known of Zelda, and, but I wasn't really, all that, thrilled with it. Then I was watching my stepbrother play Ocarina of Time, and I was captivated mostly by the story.
Well, you see, that was the opposite for me. I had never heard of Zelda until I had gotten Ocarina of Time for Christmas one year. And I was just blown away by it. You cannot get me away from the TV from this game.
I will probably be one of the few people to admit that I did not care for Majora's Mask.
I hate Majora's Mask.
We will get there in just a second. But no,
there's more squeeing over Ocarina of Time.
Yes, my stepbrother was playing through the game, and I was watching him play through it, and then he got late in the game. He's in the Gerudo Valley, and then suddenly he stopped playing it. Well, he stopped playing it because suddenly he acquired a girlfriend, and sex took preference over video games. But
that will happen. As it
blasphemy.
Yeah, I was about to say, come on.
That'll happen. But he stopped playing it altogether, and for months. So I said, well, fuck it. I'm gonna play my own game and, run through it because I'm like, what the hell happened?
Fair question here. How many of you got stuck in the water temple and couldn't get out because they didn't fix the bug until the re-release?
Yeah.
Been there.
Wait, there was a bug in the original water temple?
There was a scenario that you could get yourself permanently stuck, and there was no way to get yourself out of it. You were basically doomed to restart. I think all of us have been through it at least once.
I never had that problem, actually.
Aren't you special?
Yeah, the bug is that
it wasn't the original N64 version. They fixed it in the re-release when they made it for the GameCube.
And the remastered version, which they did for the N64.
So, with the success of Ocarina of Time, Nintendo went, let's make a sequel.
No.
Bad idea.
So,
and not just for Majora's Mask, but in general, Zelda sequels have not done well.
Majora's Mask was released in 2000, so 2 years after Ocarina of Time. Despite our initial gripes about it, it was positively reviewed.
It did sell well, especially after people got over the concept of the one thing that I personally hate, a time limit.
Yeah, I hate that.
That was
it was just annoying.
I don't think it was annoying for me. I don't think it was annoying so much as an interesting experiment, interesting plot device.
I will admit it was an experiment, but it was kind of like Zelda 2, where it's just like appreciated but not necessary.
I mean, once again, I will commend Nintendo for trying something new and completely different, but for me it didn't work in this situation.
My issue with Majora's...
First, Ryan, explain.
Well, I mean, like for some people, if you didn't know what you were doing, you were completely screwed. And in some there's just some instances where I hated being timed. I just did not like the fact that I had a time limit. I mean, yes,
one of the greatest.
Nick,
hold
on. Oh, you ran over Ryan. Keep going.
No, I pretty much finished my thought. Go ahead, Nick.
Go on, Nick.
Yeah, I figured he was finished with his thought. That's why I started talking. One of the greatest selling points of Zelda is the ability to sit and explore the world, to just go and soak it all in. With Majora's Mask, there was a time limit. Yes, you could slow time down, and you could have a couple extra hours to just, check everything out. But at the end of the day, you had to reset.
And that was the thing.
I hated all that progress.
And I hated the fact that I could lose all that when
exactly.
I wasn't.
That's why I hate it.
Besides the time limit, I think that if Majora's Mask didn't have the time limit, I would have enjoyed it a lot more because the whole mask mechanic was amazing.
And the NPC interaction, it was sublime, top of the class.
If it didn't have that time limit and the fact that you had to restart every whatever the amount, 3 days.
3 days.
Then then I would have enjoyed it a lot more. I know I would have.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, Ryan.
You weren't restricted. That was the whole point. That was the whole fact of why Majora's Mask was you had a restriction on what you could do.
Exactly.
My issue with Majora's Mask was that, other than the time limit thing, which you guys went all on over about, was, okay, you're supposed to be resetting time. How do you have progression saved from one reset to the next? Because
it was very skewed. Like, if you wanted to save your rupees, you had to deposit at the bank.
Yeah. And the bank gets
how does
destroyed
that
by the
make
thing.
sense?
Yeah,
How does that make sense?
What?
But you just reset
bank
time. How do you get rubies?
Is
that's
the
my
bank
issue with
shielded
it.
from the
Is that
space-time
there's this-
continuum?
Yeah, and that's my issue with it, is that you're just talking about resetting time. You just reset all the actions you just did. How do you get progression in a game where you're resetting everything every couple hours?
It is Nintendo logic at its finest, of just things that cannot be explained, yet somehow you are in possession of all these masks, that somehow you're in possession of all these rupees at the bank, which theoretically you're not supposed to be able to do. It was just a very skewed system based on a loosely defined logic.
So basically, I'm getting the sense that, for Ron, at least for you, your basic gripe was, how the hell does this work in context of plot? Anytime you have a story that involves time,
Yeah, that's my issue with it too, because, well, for God's sake, if I'm resetting time every 3 hours, and even if we're going on a theory of there's going to be multiple versions of Link running around doing all these multiple versions of things, why aren't you running into them? For God's sake, what the hell?
Hi, Paradox! Chrono Trigger, anyone? I'm sorry.
Yeah. And let's face it.
In Chrono Trigger, it made sense, but
yeah, Chrono Cross is what he means. Let's face it. If this is a Nintendo going, it's Magic, we ain't gotta explain shit.
Yeah, that might have been the prevailing theory, is that this is a video game. This is a video game. Just relax. You don't need to worry about physics and plot.
You see, at first that got me really confused, but once again, for me, it was the whole fact that you were timed on everything.
And how about that great smiling moon?
Oh, for Christ's
God,
sake.
that rape face.
Yeah, that freaked the hell out of me.
The great smiling moon. I would just sometimes just look up in the game and just watch it slowly descend.
Yeah, I would do that too. That was kind of fun.
Hi. Aren't you?
High impending doom.
Aren't you supposed to be causing giant tidal disruptions?
You know what was another annoying factor? There was a crow in the game that stole your sword, and the only way to get your sword back was to buy it back.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Does anyone else remember that?
Vaguely.
I've only beaten Majora's Mask once, and once is more than enough. So
yeah, I'm ready to move on to one of my mechanically favorite games of all.
We're going to, now that we've decided,
Wind Waker.
We've decided that I didn't like Majora's Mask as much as I did Ocarina of Time, but it was still passable.
Best thing that came out of Majora's Mask was Fierce Deity Link.
Yes.
Actually, that was overpowered, but actually, I really like the NPC interactions, though. From an NPC standpoint, it was probably the most interactive Zelda of the bunch. Majora's Mask was.
It didn't even take place in Hyrule. It didn't take place in Hyrule either.
It took place, and that was the thing. It took place in a different land.
And my biggest problem was the plot. He was searching for Navi.
Nick.
Why?
Lower your voice. Lower your voice.
And in the end, he never finds Navi either.
Why would you look after something that goes, "Hey, listen"?
Spoiler: am I right? He never finds Navi.
I have no idea.
I forget. Also, before I move on,
I hope not.
Before we move ourselves to Wind Waker, one last thing I forgot to mention with Ocarina of Time, it was the first in the series to introduce the Z-targeting mechanic.
Yeah.
Which would become...
I thought Ocarina of Time had Z-targeting.
I said Ocarina of Time was the first to...
my apologies.
To use the Z-targeting mechanic, which would become a mainstay in the games after it, such as Majora's Mask, and now on to Wind Waker, which was the first release for the GameCube in Japan in 2002. It didn't make it over here until a year later, 2003. It was the first game in the series that took place largely at sea.
Which was a good thing.
Instead of,
I like I liked it. I liked that aspect of it.
Instead of giant expanses of land, which was Hyrule Field, we now have giant expanses of water.
Yay,
Which is
There was something about about Wind Waker that was just, when you think about it in comparison to the other worlds, the world was huge.
well, yeah, because they made it
So huge, his voice
so
rose in
huge.
pitch.
it was just a lot. There was just a lot more to explore on the open seas.
It was
Simple fact.
It was definitely a much bigger universe. We had Link, who became a pirate, and
Yarg. And where everybody has a big ass head.
yeah, everyone has a. it was. I remember in the game's development when seeing previews and things like that. It was the first in the series to make use of the cell shading graphics.
And
And
you know
if
what?
I
That
remember
got
correct-
a lot of. Go ahead.
If I remember correctly, people were really upset by the
They
by
were.
the graphics.
That was the point I was actually going to make. Was it got a lot of knocks for cell shading, but you know what? I think
But
it was one of the
really good.
prettiest. I think it was one of the prettiest Zeldas I've seen next to Twilight Princess.
It fit the theme of Wind Waker 2 in that this was like a very much a black and white world, and
Yeah.
Link's going out finding out that, hey, there's a little bit of gray here going on. What the hell?
There was just a whole world to explore outside your tiny little island, and you went and you tried to save your sister from the clutches of Gannon, who thought she was maybe a descendant of Zelda.
And that was just because the fact that you left your little island to explore and save your sister, it made the world so much more bigger.
Yeah, my
And by
issue with
Go ahead.
Wind Waker was that I didn't mind the sailing at sea. I minded the fact that you couldn't teleport around until a good halfway through the game, and you already were traveling from one side of the world to the other, like before too long. Like after you get off the island, you had the option of going out and exploring the entire world. That
I
sounds really
was just
cool and all.
about to
Keep
I was
going,
just
Ron.
about to touch on
I was-
that subject.
I was like, that sounds really cool and all, but that's really flippin' hard to do when you only have 4 hearts and you're trying to fight stuff that you really shouldn't be fighting. So you got the Master Sword.
So it goes. So Wind Waker goes back toward more open-ended style of play.
Actually,
yeah.
I was about to say, by the time sailing got boring, we had a warp system in place, so it really cut down on that whole boring sail from one end to another
So you
exploration.
had to hunt down the pieces of the Triforce.
Hey, that was actually kind of cool, alright?
Now that's
Not that-
suck ass.
But you had to pay for it.
Yeah, that was the only
lot.
bad part, was you had to pay Tingle like 3,200 rupees just to get it.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah,
you, Tingle.
The thing that sucked me into Wind Waker was the fact when we finally went down and we got to see the cathedral from Ocarina, and you realize
Yeah.
that
Oh shit.
Wind
Or-
Waker
there-
is taking place over top of Hyrule Field and everything that you experienced in Ocarina.
My jaw dropped when I figured that out. I'm like, holy crap!
That was truly epic.
Suddenly,
question- my question-
Zelda
my-
became Waterworld.
Yeah, my question.
But a lot better.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner.
Shit, still in Hyrule.
Thank
Was, wait a minute, where does water come from?
The water, I think it came from the gods were trying to seal Ganon away, and so they flood the world and
No, that
told
was the-
people to take refuge on the mountaintops. Was that
Oh,
it?
The king made a wish saying he wanted Link hadn't shown up to save the world from Ganon yet, and so
Oh,
the
you're
king,
talking about the end of the game. Okay.
Yeah, the king made a wish saying, "Can we seal Ganon away?" And the guys kind of agreed, but didn't really do it like the way the king wanted it to be done.
Well, you still had to stab Ganon retarded, and then he turned to stone.
I didn't get the turn to stone part.
You know, I'm just ready to assume
It's
that
a
was
Nintendo game. You can't have blood-splitting gore.
I'm
Okay,
sorry, I
just
forgot.
ready to assume that it was just, a Master Sword magic there, and just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's basically it. You can't have blood pouring from Ganon's decapitate. You can't do that.
Yeah, not yet.
Did you
Nintendo
play
game,
Twilight Princess?
It's an E-rated game.
family show.
Can I just say that
Go ahead.
I hate Tingle more, if not as
Oh
much,
my
if not more than
God.
Navi.
I was ready, as soon as I found out, I was like, wait, 398 rubies to decipher one Triforce chart? I want to stab you now. Okay.
He's just trying to make.
Majora's Mask was, he was somewhat tolerable.
It's a hard world. He needs to make a profit somehow.
I actually like Tangle. It's one of the reasons I imported like Tangle's balloon fight and stuff like that on the DS.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. What the fuck?
Wait, what?
There's a game about Tingle for the DS. It's called like Tingle's Rosy Ruby Land or something.
Yep,
And
that's one of them.
it's about Tingle. It was never released in the US because we
I
hate
can't
Tingle.
imagine why it wasn't released.
Because he's playing gay.
The game's actually kind of good.
Yeah, from what
Seriously,
I've
there's an actual enough fan base for Tangle that Nintendo made a whole game based off him.
Okay,
3 of them.
Isn't popular
What?
in Japan. It is popular in Europe. It is not popular in America. That is basically the premises of Tingle. All right.
All right, let's move on before my head explodes.
Yes, let's. Wind Waker was continuing a trend established in Ocarina of Time, the use of musical instruments as plot points. You had, of course, the Ocarina in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Wind Waker, he uses a baton.
Well, didn't Link's Awakening use 8 magical instruments to wake up a fish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm waiting for the, next in the next Zelda game. I'm waiting for Link to use the baton to conduct the Boston Symphony Orchestra so that he can slow down time.
Da 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 da.
We move on. I mean, yes, there are the handheld games, but I'm going to go to the next major console release.
Twilight Princess.
We move on to Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It was released on the Wii and the GameCube in 2006. It was a launch title for the Wii. First, obviously, to make use of the motion controls. It was a very, very realistic looking, very great graphics for this game.
It was an incredible Zelda.
It was.
Very realistic, a lot more serious in tone. I already mentioned that the Wii version uses the motion controls. And yes, I will bring up the point that it did piss off some of the purists.
I'm not a purist. I just play Zelda games.
I would have fought left-handed. I'm sorry.
Link's right-handed.
It's a
I'm
pain in
sorry,
the ass when you're left-handed playing the Wii version.
I mean, obviously, Nintendo did that for obvious reasons. I mean, most people on this planet are right-handed.
I mean, honestly,
6 out of 7.
would it really make sense to swing your right hand while Link was swinging his left?
It's a video game. Would it not make sense to do that?
This is true. You make a good point.
I'm just saying, I would have done it. I would have swung with my left hand, even though I'm a righty. I would have done that.
And seen Game Over a lot more.
Honestly, it was not that big of a deal to me. Yes, I did find it a little disheartening being a Zelda fan, but
I mean, I understand.
I got over it so I could play the game.
I understand Nintendo's reasons for doing it. I mean, you don't want all these people on the planet who are right-handed to suddenly be forced to use their non-dominant hand.
I mean, I agree with you on that.
I can understand why Nintendo did that, and it didn't affect the story one bit. I didn't care, just as long as I could play and enjoy the game, and I did.
Just play it on GameCube.
Yeah, that is probably the one advantage GameCube has over Wii, is the fact that it's more authentic.
In terms of just
and you can play the GameCube version on your Wii. That's what I did.
Twilight Princess was the last hurrah for the Wii, for the GameCube.
I'm like, no, wait a minute. The Wii...
Hey!
My
Mario
bad.
Galaxy 2. Mario Galaxy 2. That's all.
I've played it and I've beaten it. It is awesome.
And Brian, there's our Mario quota for the episode.
Yeah, that's it. We've hit our Mario quota. That's it.
Screw you!
But many people consider Twilight Princess to be actually the greatest Zelda game in the series because of just how wonderful it looks, how very serious the story is. It's not a particularly happy story.
That's why, to me, it doesn't feel like Zelda.
Okay, hold on. Chris, elaborate on that.
Okay, I've been playing Zelda. I beat the original Zelda when I was 3. I'm a huge Zelda fan. Probably my favorite game. That's why I have it tattooed on my body. when I picked up Twilight Princess, I played it because it's a Zelda game, but to me, I was like, okay, they took elements from this, but because it's so realistic, it's not what... The whole reason that they went to cel-shaded graphics with Wind Waker was because Miyamoto was like, this was my original choice for the game. It's a cartoony game, it's a fantasy game, I don't want it to be realistic. But because of all the backlash that he had, thanks to Wind Waker, he went to the more realistic graphics with the Wii version and the GameCube Twilight Princess, and to me, it was too serious. It didn't feel like Zelda.
That's an interesting take. Okay, Ryan, go on.
I have to agree with Chris. I mean, it is a great game all around, but when it comes down to it, it does not. At the end, it does not feel like a true Legend of Zelda game.
See, I disagree with that.
Okay, go on, Nick.
When you break it down, it covers the main emphasis of the point that Link is the hero of courage, Zelda is the hero of courage, and Ganon is pretty much the evil being of power. Excuse me, and
that was a hell of a fun boss battle, though.
Yes, it was. I will admit that.
And it was just really a great boss battle. How Ganon
got to fight against Zelda.
Possessed Zelda, spoiler alert. And really
oh my god, you have to beat the crap out of Zelda.
You took her on. There was a 4-part boss fight, against Zelda, Beast Ganon, Horseback Ganon, and then Ganon himself. Granted, it was a little easy, but Zelda Twilight Princess really encompassed what Zelda truly is that battle against ultimate good versus evil. It is the ultimate courage and power, courage and wisdom versus power.
I mean, I will say this, because it was great simply for the fact that you actually had a sword fight with Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Wind Waker did pull that off too, and they
no,
Bull.
Ron, what say you?
Bull. First off, the sword fight in Wind Waker was okay.
Nick, hold on.
And
sword fight in Wind Waker was okay. I'm sorry, but Twilight Princess sword fight with Ganondorf is much better because of the fact that you've been building up to him the entire goddamn game. Compared to Wind Waker, we only find out it was Ganondorf that it got sealed off in the beginning, at the very end of the game. You've been building up to fighting Ganondorf the entire goddamn game, and you go out and do it, and after he's damn near killed Midna, he's possessed Zelda, he's fought you in 3 different forms, and he gets more powerful in each form. And you're sitting around with your dinky sword and your shield, and you got nothing else but your wits against you, fighting this beast of a man who's wielding a great sword with one hand and trying to beat you senseless with it.
All he had in Twilight Princess was a katana. In Twilight Princess, he had 2. You had to fight him man to man while Zelda was knocked out. You had to use your parry defenses to even deal damage against that guy. Wind Waker was just on a scale of I can't imagine what. And for the end of the Wind Waker fight, you had to reflect that light arrow off of Zelda into Ganon. That's just on a scale of holy cow. That just takes incredible coordination to pull off. That Twilight Princess could not just match. I'm sorry.
I really enjoyed Twilight Princess. I mean, yes, I will admit that it because of the more serious nature of the story, it probably didn't feel all that much like a Zelda game.
That was the thing. Every other aspect of Twilight Princess felt like a Zelda game. It was just the story wasn't.
Because of just how because of how serious it was actually the first Zelda game to get a T rating. Up until this point, it were all E ratings.
That is true. You do make a good point, Brian.
There was because of the realistic.
It was a little bit more violent.
There was a bit more and you also had animated blood. That crossed the line.
That the censor said
Censor's like, oh crap.
That immediately made it from an E game to a T game. But no matter, I still enjoyed it immensely, and
it was a great game.
Yes,
Twilight Princess was amazing. My only complaint with Twilight Princess was 5 heart pieces instead of 4 to make
oh
it
god,
what the fuck?
I hate it.
It was already hard enough to find 4 pieces of heart. Now you have to find 5. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
That was another thing. I hated the 5-piece heart system.
I am with you
was
100% on
annoying.
that.
Okay.
It was annoying.
So now we have a game that is in development. Skyward Sword.
I heard it's coming out
correct-
this year.
It is
Correct
coming
me-
out this year.
Now,
Cool.
correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like they're going back to more of the cel-shaded graphics, aren't they?
They
It
are.
It
It's
looks
a mix
like
of-
if
It
they
looks
took
like
Wind
it.
Waker and Twilight Princess.
Yeah,
It's Twilight Princess style in terms of like body sizes and the world around
but it's
them.
Wind
But
Waker
it's-
style in terms of graphic-wise.
Correct.
But I do like how they're trying to incorporate the Wii Motion Plus system to provide more one-to-one control of your sword and shield. I do appreciate that.
Yeah,
Whether
and
it
it's going to be
works-
interesting.
Whether it works is an entirely different matter, but I like the fact that they are at least attempting.
It's going to be
Apparently,
interesting when the game comes out, most definitely.
in terms of where this takes place on the Zelda chronology, it has been said that this game will take place before Ocarina of Time.
Meh.
Which, you know what? As far as chronologically is concerned, I could give a damn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I
You
mean,
know, by
not
this
chrono-
point, I just care about great game mechanics, pleasing to the eye, amazing soundtrack. That's the things I care about a Zelda game. It's what I care about any Zelda game.
Well, that's one
Do
thing we
you
haven't
deliver
talked
great
about.
game mechanics? Do you deliver great soundtrack? Are the graphics pleasing to the eye? Yes, then you have a great game. It doesn't matter what the chronologically is.
I like the timeline though in Zelda because of the fact that there is a connection from like what the previous versions did. I'm curious to see how this is gonna where it's gonna fit in the timeline, just because of the fact that maybe this is gonna introduce the Master Sword to the
That would be interesting to see.
we'll
the
find
actual
out.
introduction of the Master Sword.
We will definitely find out, definite story and
I-
whatnot, and stop running people over, Nick. It's. I'm interested to see. I mean, the Zelda chronology is already a tangled mess to begin with. Although I have to admit, I could not. I mean, you have Phantom Hourglass, which was made for the DS. It is a direct sequel to Wind Waker, and
Blah.
by direct,
Horrible game.
I mean, and then
It's
by
immediately
It was
after.
amazing.
and by direct, I mean takes place 5 minutes after Wind Waker.
And then there's a sequel to that game, which takes
Yeah,
place
there's a
about
sequel
5
to the
minutes after Phantom Hourglass.
Well,
Spirit Tracks was actually kind of good though.
I had to put down Phantom Hourglass because it takes place right after Wind Waker. I had to stop playing 5 minutes into Phantom Hourglass because I went, Zelda gets kidnapped again? Are you fucking kidding me? You just spent all of Wind Waker trying to rescue Zelda, and then 5 minutes into Phantom Hourglass, she gets kidnapped again? Link
Well,
cannot keep his hands on Zelda for more than 3 seconds!
Well, admittedly, in Wind Waker, Zelda in Wind Waker is a pirate queen, and she's a very active, boisterous, adventurous girl.
And then gets kidnapped 5 seconds into
But,
I had to stop
what
right
else
there.
is Zelda gonna rely on? I mean, it's kind of like the Mario plot of Peach gets kidnapped.
Hey, we
every
already
fucking
crossed our
day.
Mario quota for this episode.
Oh, screw
But at
you.
least Mario gets a cake.
But
Yeah.
let me listen. At least listen.
Yeah,
to
Link doesn't get
Hey,
shit for rescuing Zelda.
Yeah, at least
Neither does
Mario gets laid. At least Mario gets laid. Zelda, I mean,
No,
Link
he doesn't.
get
We established
shit.
that in a previous episode.
Just get laid.
Give us a kiss.
I
No,
mean,
just a
Link
kiss.
and Madeline and what's that girl in Twilight Princess? I don't know.
And,
Midna.
No, not Midna, the other girl. The girl who tends to the horse. Elia or something?
Yes.
Oh, that chick.
At least, I mean, Link doesn't get Zelda, but at least he gets a chick. Mario, at least he gets head for the princess.
Moving on down the line here as we start to wind down the Zelda chat. We have, I mean, obviously other elements of the Zelda series that have remained memorable these last 25 years. Koji Kondo, who was the composer for the series.
Another god.
Another god of music like Unimatsu and
Yes.
whatever the Dragon Quest guy is, I forgot.
Yeah, well, that's not hard.
Just try to Americanize it, it's fine.
Well, Koji Kondo, who composed the music for the series, again, legendary music. It's so memorable. If somebody starts humming it, you immediately recognize it at the drop of a hat.
Koji Kondo did the Mario series.
Yes, he does.
He does a lot of Nintendo music.
He does.
Which Koji Kondo is probably can be mentioned in the same breath as Uematsu.
Yes.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you there.
Yes, I would agree. And, again, because of a lot of the gameplay elements remain the same, it remains a memorable series. So, as we wind this thing down, what both about Dragon Quest and Zelda, what has overall made this series appeal these last 25 years and continue to appeal? Because 25 years is a good long run for anything. And
Ron, why don't we start with you?
I'm going to say the epicness of the entire games, because they all basically end in this very I don't want to say this very dynamic, dramatic fight where Link's winning with usually by the bare skin of his teeth and has to bounce arrows off of swords and shoot Gannon in the head with a light arrow. It's all this it's this pitting of wits and courage against pure, unadulterated evil.
Okay.
And that appeal, that struggle between good and evil is what you think, for at least Zelda, has kept the appeal strong for the series.
But not only just the gameplay, but I think a big importance of not just gameplay, but back then in the NES days, the sound had a lot to do with it. You want to be, because graphical capabilities were so limited back then, you wanted to be drawn into the world not just by the game mechanics, but the music as well. And both Koji Kondo and Sui Gendi or some Tsujiyama, thank you. Did such a great job with the musical composition of it that you just feel drawn into the world. You feel like you belong there, and I think the musical aspect is just as important as the game mechanic aspect of these games. That it really just draws you into this world, even before graphics were a major part of gameplay.
I agree. The music of the two series certainly has helped.
Indeed. And
All right,
for
Ryan, on to you.
Yes, but for me, I mean, I really can't say this about Dragon Quest because I'm not that familiar with the series. But for Legend of Zelda, just the fact that you had this world, you had this world to explore, and it was fairly easy to do. I mean, maybe I'm not talking about the dungeons. I'm just talking about exploring in general. It felt real to me.
Right. I mean, imagine the overworld themes for the light world and the dark world. I mean, that da 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 da, or that ba 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 ba. I mean, it draws you in. It just makes you want to be there. And not to mention
I mean, I know we keep talking about the music, but the music is a mainstay for the series. Without the music, you have no game.
As is Dragon Warrior, it opens up with the same overture every game.
And why is that? Because the graphical capabilities of back then were so limited, they had to come up with other ways to draw you into the game, and that's why there were such great solid game mechanics. Why there was such solid music through the game was just to draw you into that world, because back then graphics were just not state of the art. Now that it is, okay, but even today with Twilight Princess and Dragon Warrior 9, they still have great music to accompany with the great graphics, and that's why they're such classic hits today.
Not to mention the fact that the new technology brought on by these consoles can allow a further degree of immersion and deeper storytelling.
They
Absolutely.
can with the music, with the consoles we have today, you can have a full orchestra in your background.
And they do.
Yeah, and they do, and it sounds fantastic. It's like you're listening to a movie score.
And it's no good unless it is of the highest quality, as you've been saying, Ryan.
Exactly.
I mean, it's always been, for me, quality over quantity. You could have a 40-hour RPG, and it does you no good unless you can put yourself in that world. And it starts with the gameplay mechanics and the music.
Chris, what say you?
Well, talking about the Dragon Age and the Zelda franchises, they both kind of, in their own respects, are kind of do the same thing. Like, Dragon Quest, a lot of, like, my complaint against it is it's the same thing over and over. As in
Amen.
Zelda, it's the exact same thing. It's the same story. Link is this hero that's been resurrected over and over and over again. He has to go save the princess. And I think that's one of the reasons that these games are still around, is that story is just kind of a comfort zone. It's the nostalgia of playing it when we were kids, and now that we're older, just still playing the same story. No matter what, every year we know that a Zelda game, when the Zelda game comes out, we're not going to get thrown a curveball where it's like, oh, Link now needs to go save his brother. It's Link and Zelda, they remain constant. In Dragon Age, the story kind of remains constant. The gameplay remains constant for the most part. And that's kind of why these games are still around. It's that comfort feeling. It's like comfort food.
I made a mention of that in a previous.
That's a very good.
I made a mention of
comparison.
that in a
Anti-view, bad and sad.
I talked about that in a previous episode. We were talking about franchises, that what makes a franchise great and what keeps the series appeal going. Bless you. For 25 years we've known that the objective for every Zelda game is the same: beat Ganon. We know that. We know
and
that.
Every Dragon Quest game.
Can you stop running people over?
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm trying to make a point.
I'm sorry. I'm holding back the laughing, and I need to.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
But we've known for 25 years what the objective is, but yet with each successive game, the way you achieve your objective is always different. But still retains some elements of familiarity. And yes, it is a comfort. And yes, it certainly helps to appeal to the core base.
Right, and because they're such good games is why the newer generations are getting into it. And not only that, you also have their parents are now like people like us that played it when we were younger, and now we're like, hey, look at this, it's a new Zelda, you should check this out.
Yeah, I think that is a very important factor, Chris. I'm glad you brought that up. Is because now that my younger sister, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this, is about to get married and is about to have kids, that she's going to introduce that subject to her kids and to show what we grew up with, what we experienced, kind of like what our parents experienced to us. It's just that generation to generation to generation. It's exactly what you said, Chris. I agree with that 100%. It's just that it's that whole passing down. It's the whole torch bearing.
Right, and my dad was the one that passed the Zelda torch to me. I remember being a kid and playing the original Zelda with him. I remember the first day that Link to the Past was out, we both ran out to JCPenney's to buy it, and we played it together.
You and me both, brother.
He passed that torch to me, and I feel it's a responsibility to me to pass that Zelda torch along to my kids.
And that's something we're all going to do.
I think that's
something we'll all be doing.
I think that as gamers, that's all what we're going to be doing is show our kids what we enjoyed back in the day. Final Fantasy 1, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Mario, Sonic. We're gonna show them all these great games that, even though they're not maybe as great as they are today, we showed them what they were like back then, and just how great they were, both a game mechanic aspect, but both a sound aspect, a graphics aspect. Back in the day, 16-bit was state of the art.
Right, and you have to experience those to really appreciate where we are now. If it wasn't for Zelda,
Precisely.
we would have none of these adventure games that we play today. Without, Dragon Warrior, we wouldn't have as much RPGs or as immersive as they are today. We have to go back to those roots.
Where would we be without these great classics like Dragon Quest or Legend of Zelda or Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time or even Dragon Warrior 8? Our kids would be so lost without them. It is our duty as now grown adults. I'm 26. I don't know what the rest of you guys are, but I feel it is my duty and obligation for when and if I have kids to show them what I grew up with and to show them what great gaming was back then as opposed to now. They're now drawn into this Call of Duty crap.
Call of Duty's not crap.
Okay, yeah. I will admit that Call of Duty's not crap, but
there will be no gamer bashing.
It just has nothing compared to the days of Dragon Quest and Legend of Zelda. That's the point I'm trying to make.
The duty of us is, now that we're soon becoming the old guard as our parents are slowly aging and sadly passing away, it's our duty to show the new generation the magic of the story, the magic of the art, the magic of the music, and show them how this blending up together can have this epic to them and show them the magic and that everything is good.
Well said.
Amen, brother.
There we go. Well said, guys.
All agree.
Well said, and I hope that these series continue for 25 more years. So,
amen.
You're here.
Let's hope we continue. But by that point, we'll probably be on to holodecks and can actually,
Well, you don't know that. By this point, we'd all thought we'd...
Hard games on motorcycles!
Yeah,
we all thought we'd be in the Back to the Future.
We'll have holodecks and do to Zelda what Link refuses to do. But anyway...
I will still be playing my NES and my original Zelda.
You and me both, brother. Thank you.
So will I.
I think we all will.
Well said, everybody. So on our next episode, we will continue the trend of gaming milestones. The next episode, we will be talking about Metroid and Donkey Kong.
Yes!
Metroid also turns 25 this year. Donkey Kong turns 30. And
only 30 years old?
Yeah, the first Donkey Kong game came out in 1981.
God, I am old.
Yes, go drown yourself in a bottle of schnapps. So that's what we're going to do on our next episode. So I would like to thank Ron, Ryan, Chris, and Nick for all of their fan-squeeing contributions to this episode. It is Metroid and Donkey Kong on the next episode of Downloadable Content. See you around, everyone.
Later.
Take care, everyone.